Hey guys, it's Natalie and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my favorite books of 2020, and I know this video is really late, and so are all the other videos that I've been meaning to film for my channel, but recently I've been the CEO of falling off the face of the earth. So I'm back on the channel and I'm going to try to post steadily. Also, I want to apologize if you guys have a little bit of whiplash because I feel like I look entirely different every time I film a new video, so I apologize for that. But I've been going through a lot of personal growth and style changes and things like that, and try to bear with me as I go through these changes, and hopefully after a while I will start to look resoundingly similar in all of my videos. Anyways, let's talk about 2020. So in 2020 I read 81 books. So out of those 81 books, I think I rated about 30 of them 5 stars. So I narrowed it down to a list of 10 books that I loved the most in 2020. Let's get into it, starting at number 10. So coming in at number 10 is a book I don't have a physical copy of. I gave it to my younger sisters because I really wanted them to read it, and that is Scars Like Wings by Erin Stewart. This is one of the best YA contemporaries I've read in such a long time, and I've read a lot of YA contemporaries because that used to be the only genre I would read. So this one definitely takes the cake over a lot of YA contemporaries I've read. This one follows our main character, Ava, who is a burn survivor. She, I believe, has 60% of burns covering her body. She lost her parents, she lost her best friend, and she makes the decision to go back to school, which is very difficult for her considering she is not really coming to terms with her appearance. She hates herself, and she struggles a lot with her appearance and how she feels and how people perceive her, until Ava meets a girl named Harper in a group where other trauma survivors talk about it and kind of get help and things like that. And she meets Harper, and her entire perspective on life changes because Harper is very positive despite all the horrible things that have happened to her, and it gives Ava some hope. So I really loved this book because I feel like there wasn't sugarcoating on anything despite the harrowing subject of the book, which is being a burn survivor, which also is something that I've never read about before, so I feel like it was very informational to learn about a burn survivor as a main character because I've never read something like that before. And also I just feel like the characters were very well done. They were very real, and a lot of the struggles they had were real. I just found them to be very easily relatable, and I just really enjoyed this book. So if you're looking for a super hard-hitting YA contemporary, highly recommend Scars Like Wings by Erin Stewart. I feel like this book is so underrated. I've never seen anybody else on BookTube talk about this before, so definitely check out this book. It's so fantastic. Coming in at number 9 is The Shadows Between Us by Tricia Levenseller. This is a fantastic YA fantasy about our main character, Alessandra, who is often overlooked, and she's kind of like the youngest daughter, so her father's not really looking to court her or anything like that, so she decides to take matters into her own hands. Alessandra has brewed up a plan to woo the Shadow King, marry him, and then kill him and take the kingdom for herself. I absolutely love this book. This book is so badass, and so is our main character, Alessandra. She knows exactly what she's worth, and she will do whatever it takes to get what she deserves. And I just love her as a character because she doesn't take anything from anybody. She's very sex positive, and she's just overall a really awesome character. I also really loved reading about her dressmaking because she makes a lot of dresses throughout the novel that are very daring, and they challenge the royal court's like trends and styles, and it's just really hilarious and interesting to read about. So if you're looking for a very quick and easy fantasy book that is full of mischief and things like that, then I highly recommend this book. It was so fantastic. So coming in at number 8 is Woven in Moonlight by Isabel Ibanez, and this one is a YA Bolivian-inspired fantasy that I absolutely loved this year. It was one of the best fantasies that I have ever read to date. I just thought it was really refreshing and interesting and full of intrigue. This one follows our main character, Jimena, who is the stand-in condesa, or stand-in queen, so that the real queen doesn't get hurt or injured. When the evil usurper Atok asks for the condesa's hand in marriage, Jimena has to take that offer, which she uses as an opportunity to get revenge for the usurper Atok, basically taking over La Ciudad. This book really makes you feel like a range of emotions. It makes you feel angry, it makes you feel happy, it makes you feel sad, and I just really love when books are able to take you on an emotional roller coaster like that, especially in a fantasy world where you have to suspend disbelief. So I just really loved this book. It has such lush writing, and I just really, really enjoyed it. And I will never stop talking about this book because I love it, and it's super fantastic. And our main character, Jimena, is such a badass, and I just can't say anything other than please read this book. Coming in at number 7 is another book that I do not own physically, and that is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. So I initially read The Great Gatsby in high school, and because it was something I had to read for school, it just right over my head, and I didn't really remember too much about it. So in January of 2020, I decided to pick up The Great Gatsby because for some reason I associate New Year's with the 20s, so I wanted to read a book set in the 20s, which is why I read The Great Gatsby, also because I didn't remember anything about it at all whatsoever. So if you aren't familiar with The Great Gatsby, which I'm surprised if you aren't, this is a classic, and it follows our main character, Nick, who moves in next door to a man named Jay Gatsby, who is a very, very interesting man. It's really hard to describe the plot of this book because I feel like the plot isn't the strong point of The Great Gatsby. It's the characters and the relationships that they have with one another. So basically, Gatsby throws these huge, elaborate parties in hopes that one girl who he loves will show up named Daisy. Basically, this book is you getting a lens into this group of catty suburban rich people and their relationships with one another, and Daisy and Gatsby are kind of like this glue that holds together the friend group, but it's also cataclysmic in that if they were to have a falling out, the entire group would fall apart. So it's a very interesting book, and it puts a lens on classism and a bunch of other things, and it's just a fantastic book. Also, the writing is absolutely beautiful. I have so many quotes from this book that I have saved on like a Google document just because I absolutely loved it. So I can definitely picture myself reading this book once a year because it has a special place in my heart. It is so iconic, one of my favorite classics, and if you're like me and read it in high school and don't remember jack shit about it, then you should reread it because you'll love it. Okay, so I had to move the camera down a little bit. I apologize because my legs were starting to fall asleep in the position I was sitting in, so I have moved a little bit. Please ignore my man's gym bag in the background. Let's just not talk about that. Anyways, coming in at number 6 is Hunger by Roxane Gay. This is a fantastic nonfiction book that I read this year. This is the second book I've read by Roxane Gay, the first being Bad Feminist. And I read this one immediately after because I was really, really eager to get my hands on more of her work. So this book is a particularly interesting nonfiction book because it is basically a book that chronicles the history of Roxane Gay's body and the damage that she has taken to it, whether it be from somebody else or herself. She talks about her struggles with eating disorders, she talks about being fat, and how people perceive her, and I feel like this is a very harrowing but very necessary read. This book is just so unique in the concept of it and also the execution because this is a collection of short essays and little anecdotes about Roxane Gay's life and things that happened to her. And this book is just really like nothing I've read before, especially in the nonfiction realm. So if you're looking for something that's really harrowing but really impactful, then I highly recommend this one. I also recommend listening to this on audio because it's narrated by Roxane Gay herself, so it's that much more of a harrowing experience hearing it from the woman who wrote the book. Overall, this book is just so poignant, and I love Roxane Gay's writing style because she is so straight to the point, no bullshit, no holds barred kind of shit, and I just really love her writing. So if you want to read some harrowing nonfiction, I've said harrowing like 10 times, please excuse me, but pick this one up, it's super, super good. Coming in at number 5 is another book that I do not own a physical copy of, and That is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This one is an adult romance that I read this year, and this book really, really put me onto adult romance because I had this idea about what adult romance was and what it wasn't, and I feel like this book really was a great introduction into romance for me. So this book follows our main character Chloe, who is chronically ill, and after she has a near-death experience, she kind of realizes, wow, if I were to have died, what would I say that I have done with my life? So she basically makes a list of things that she wants to complete before she dies to kind of break her out of her shell a little bit, because she's definitely introverted, and she also has a chronic illness which holds her back in some ways. She enlists the help of her landlord Red to help her complete the list, and along the way she falls in love. So like I said, this book completely got me into the adult romance genre, which I previously was not in, and this book is so funny, and I absolutely love Talia Hibbert's writing. She is such an exquisite writer, because I felt everything that happened in this book. I felt the happy emotions, the sad emotions, and I just fell in love with all the characters. I fell in love with the storyline. So if you guys want some really refreshing, upbeat romance with a ton of comedy and hilarious banter, highly recommend this book. It is so fantastic, and so is the sequel, which I have also read. So please pick up this book. I swear you will not regret it. So up next, coming in at number 4, I have Orpheus Girl by Brynner Bell Henry. This one is a fantastic YA contemporary that I read this year that absolutely changed me. This is the first time I have read a book where I actually really connect to the character, and I feel like seen, I feel like I am them, and I definitely will forever love this book. So this book follows our main character Rhea, who lives in a very small conservative Texas town with her grandmother, and when her and her best friend both get outed, they get sent to conversion therapy camp. So this is definitely a very difficult read, especially in terms of reading about queer people and violence against them. So this book is about one of the worst things that can happen to you as a queer person, and it is just really difficult to read, but I feel like it is a very necessary one. I read this book twice this year because I loved it so much, and just because I see myself so much in Rhea, I really connected to her as a character, and I really have a strong personal connection to this book. This book is also really interesting because it combines a lot of Greek mythology into the story, and it kind of regales the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. Definitely pick this one up. It is one of my favorites now of all time.
Hello, subscribblers. Watch her videos. Smash the like button and hit subscribe.
So coming in at number 3 is The Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu, which is a really fantastic YA fantasy that I read this year. This one has my whole heart. I annotated the crap out of it because I love it so much. And this one is really interesting because it is a retelling and also a historical fiction of sorts. So this book follows Nannerl, who is the sister of Wolfgang Mozart, who is overlooked as a composer, not only because she is a woman, but also because Wolfgang has all the limelight, obviously. So Nannerl makes a deal with a devilish type named Hyacinth, and in order for her to get more recognition, she does these very sketchy, shady tasks for Hyacinth in a kingdom called the Kingdom of Back, which is this very eerie kingdom that manifests itself to Nannerl whenever Hyacinth is ready for her to do a task for him. So this book is really interesting because it is about two people who actually existed, but it is a kind of a retelling of their story. And also because the real life Wolfgang and Nannerl, on their carriage rides across Europe during Wolfgang's tour of Europe, they came up with a kingdom called the Kingdom of Back on their very long carriage rides, and they kept adding on to it and creating this Kingdom of Back, and they made a map of it and everything like that. And so the Kingdom of Back was a real concept made up by the real Wolfgang and Nannerl, which is why it makes this story so interesting. This book has absolutely beautiful writing, and it reads like a fairy tale, and this is just one of the best YA fantasies I've read in such a long time, and I wasn't sure if I was going to like it because, you know, it has a lot to do with music, and I'm not too into reading about books that are about music, but this one really took me by surprise. It swept me off my feet. So if you're looking for a great YA fantasy, highly recommend this one. So my number 1 and number 2 picks I do not own physical copies of. Well, one of them I do, I just literally can't find it anywhere. So coming in at number 2 is I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. This is a great YA contemporary, and this one is about 2 siblings named Jude and Noah, who are 2 very different people. The story is really hard to describe, but it basically follows siblinghood and 2 siblings who really love art, and it's just really hard to describe. But basically it's about Jude and Noah coming together and then falling apart and getting in fights with each other like siblings do. And this is just a very intricately wound story. When I read this book, I can definitely tell how much care the author put into creating the storyline and the timeline, because it follows dual timelines. It follows when Jude and Noah were kids and then in the present day. And so in a way, it almost feels like you're growing up with them because of the dual timeline aspect. So it's a very interesting read. This book just covers a variety of different subjects: family, siblinghood. It covers what it means to be an artist and the highs and lows of art, where you love art and you can't stop creating art, or you hating art and destroying everything you've ever made, which I definitely related to as an artist. So I think that the art aspect was done really well here, and also because you see 2 characters who are siblings who both grow up loving art and all its forms. So it's a really captivating story. Also, one of our characters is exploring his queer identity, which is also really interesting to read about, because I, have never been a young gay boy. I've been a young gay girl, but not a young gay boy. And so it was very interesting to read about his queer identity coming of age. So I think it was a very interesting perspective to read from. So I highly recommend this book. It is so fantastic. The writing is really unique. It's really beautiful. Jude and Noah are polarizing characters. I love them so much, and I can't wait to read this book again. It definitely takes a great perspective on art and what it means to be an artist, and family, and how families can unravel, and it is just everything. I couldn't decide whether I wanted this book to be my number 1 or my number 2, but I eventually decided on it being my number 2 book of the year. But I love this book with my whole heart, so please pick this one up. It is so good. So, my number 1 favorite book of 2020, of all the 81 books I read, is Forest of a Thousand Lanterns by Julie C. Dow. So, this one, if you haven't heard about it, is a stunning YA fantasy that I love so fucking much. So this one is an Asian retelling of the Evil Queen origin story, and it follows our main character, Shifeng. Shifeng's aunt lays out a prophecy for her where she is destined to do great things, and Shifeng really believes this prophecy. She believes that she's meant for greatness. So this book I loved, especially because of Shifeng, our main character, because I feel like she is the perfect morally gray character. Sometimes you hate her, sometimes you love her, you want to give her a hug, you want to strangle her, and she is just the perfect definition of a morally gray character. And you see this war inside of her with love and light and darkness and power, and it's a very palpable struggle. I really felt her struggle and her wants and her desires, and I just feel like she was characterized so well. There's something I just really love about a war between dark and light, and Shifeng is a perfect representation of that. So if you're looking for a great, morally great character, I highly recommend this book. Not only is the characterization in this book great, but also the writing is so fantastic. I really felt like I was in this fantasy world that Julie C. Dow created, and I could taste the food, and I could smell the smells and feel the air, and I can't really describe it, but she's really, really fantastic at writing, and I really loved the fantasy world that she created. So if you are looking for a very unique and just absolutely beautifully written YA fantasy, highly recommend Forest of Thousand Lanterns by Julie C. Dow. There's also a sequel, and then there's also a very short book that takes place in the same universe as the first two books. So please check out this book and the series. It is so fantastic, and I will never shut up about it. So I think that concludes my favorite books of 2020 video. I apologize if I get a little bit repetitive with describing my books, or my descriptions are kind of vague. I've been out of the reading game for far too long, and I almost forgot how to talk about books and describe the things I like about them just because I've been gone for so long off this channel where I'm actually talking to people about books besides to my boy. So I apologize. But like I said, I'm going to try to be posting regularly again because I miss you guys, I miss reading, but I finally feel like the motivation to read has come back to me, and I can't wait for the new year. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Leave a like, subscribe down below, and hit the notification bell if you don't want to miss a single upload, and have a great day. Bye!